Not so long ago, LS Mark made a video about why he didn't like the recent Phineas and Ferb movie. Now, I haven't watched the video or the movie, and honestly, I don't really care. I mainly want to talk about Jeff Marsh's response to a tweet of someone asking for his thoughts on the video, and he replied by saying that he doesn't have time for haters and negativity. I saw various reactions, some with disappointment, others even drawing parallels to Butch Hartman, which kind of inspired me to address this topic as a whole because it seems like a lot of people are adamant of the idea that creators should take criticism from the public, but my stance on this is a bit more nuanced. I personally don't see anything wrong with this tweet, and I'm even willing to go so far as to say that the comment Butch Hartman made 2 years ago.
If someone wants to do something and they want to ask me questions like that, that's one thing. But if someone doesn't do anything and they want to I don't know, criticize, then I have no time for them.
Honestly, don't really have much of a problem with it. Now, later he said that if you aren't a content creator, you shouldn't criticize anyone, which is a stupid thing to say, but the original commentary he made about not having time for negativity, honestly, thinking about it, there's nothing necessarily wrong about feeling that way. Now, I know what rebuttal I'll get immediately, which is that creators should be able to take criticism and that they can learn from public feedback and avoid being self-absorbed and egotistical. I get all that, but here's the thing though, you have no idea what the creator you're shitting on is aiming towards. You might think that the criticisms you have to offer might be helpful to the creator because it sounds reasonable to you. Because of the fact that you have those negative emotions in the first place, you feel justified in holding them and believe that they're valid. And I mean, it's fine if you feel incentivized to express the way you feel about the piece of art, but that doesn't necessarily mean that what you have to say is in any way helpful to the people who worked on the media in question. Because none of us were there when they created it. Most of us haven't met them and don't have a single clue about what they're trying to achieve or what priorities they have. So in the off chance that they see no value or usefulness in the things you have to say about their creation, then how exactly do they benefit in listening to your criticism? Because you feel compelled to express it in the first place? Well, how the fuck is that any of their business? And that's another thing I think I need to remind people. I believe everyone should absolutely be allowed to share their input on media. I don't believe anyone should be exempt from doing so, and I think it's good to have various perspectives presented in the conversation. But that being said, I do not believe everyone is entitled to have their opinions heard or addressed by the people they're criticizing, especially because being exposed to negativity can put a damper on a person's mental health. I am someone who has no problem listening to criticism. At the end of the day, it's not a big deal, and I hardly get offended by negative comments. But that's just me. I don't have that big of a channel and don't need to deal with an insanely large number of people bashing me for the things I create. And if there's someone out there who has trouble coping with that, and in order to prevent anxiety and emotional distress, they're better off distancing themselves from negative comments, I honestly can't really tell them not to do that. At the end of the day, creators are here to put their works of art out there to the world for us to see. And once they do that, it's job done for them. And if communication with the public isn't of any interest to them, then I mean, well, so be it. We're just gonna have to deal with it. And even if you want to stick with the argument that they can learn from criticism and that it's not helpful to shield themselves from it, there are still some holes with that. For one thing, you're assuming that it's impossible for them to find out about the response to the works if they're not actively seeking them out, and I don't think that's necessarily true. Now, this might not really apply as heavily to independent content creators, but a lot of artists out there have agents and managers who may very well have all of the incentive to seek out the response from the public in order to know if the audiences are responding well to their clients' works. If they have reasons to believe the creators might benefit from the criticisms they're receiving, they're probably gonna tell them, especially if they're working for a big company where following a creator's vision isn't always a priority and where marketability plays a huge role in how products get released. If they find new and important information that might lead to better sales, they're absolutely going to tell the creators about it, no question. So regardless if artists go out of the way to read criticism online, they're still gonna be exposed to it regardless, sometimes even before the work gets released. Do you know how often changes are made from the original vision and attempt at making that said product? Do you think those changes come out of nowhere? Someone had to have said, yeah, this fucking sucks, let's change it to this. Maybe even from focus groups or sometimes even from the creators themselves, which brings me to my second point. I would go so far as to say that most of the times, a lot of the problems we as audience members have with movies or television shows we watch, the people working on them are 100% aware of them. I've actually made this point in the past, but the people that create the media we consume are professionals who study the craft of art creation. They're probably way harsher to themselves than we could ever dream of. A lot of the times, the reason why imperfect media gets released is not because the people who made them are dumb, Well, I mean, some of them are, but a lot of the times it's just that they had to release it. Maybe because of deadlines, maybe because they're in a position where they're creating something that they're not necessarily inspired to work on. Maybe they're just not skilled enough, and that if they continue to linger on the same project until they're 100% satisfied, it's gonna ruin their productivity and prevent them from putting things out there. Sometimes artists just can't release the best thing out there in full awareness, and to them, listening to someone point out mistakes that they had already noticed and thought about it months or even years prior, like, what the fuck is he meant to gain from listening to this random dude on the internet? Especially if they release something that turned out to be successful. In that case, why the hell would they even care? They made something that worked in spite of the compromises they had to accept, and now they can move on to something else. So again, why bother? Now, none of this is to say that I personally believe that creators shouldn't seek out public feedback. Let me make it clear, I absolutely respect creators a lot more when they stay in touch with the people who care about their works and concern themselves with how the audiences feel about it, so that they could maybe improve in the future. But even with that, I am not under the impression that this is an attitude everyone should take. I encourage everyone to say how much they hate the media that they do. Make it as long and as harsh as you can. Just maybe don't tag the creators or directly send them your hit piece, and also don't act like a fucking crybaby if they decide that they're not interested in addressing your concerns, at least when it comes to their art. As far as what Butch Hartman has been guilty of these past months is a bit of a different story and doesn't even really have much to do with the fact that he's creating bad cartoons. Granted, he is, but most of the backlash comes from the fact that he's been a scummy, ignorant asshole, but I'm not really here to discuss any of that.